So hi, I'm live. This is Sarah from Singer's Advice. Well, welcome. Well, I hope I'm live anyway. This is the first time I've done this, so pretty scary. So I hope everybody's okay. Thank you so much to those who are joining me this evening. I know that a lot of people are sort of in different time zones, and it's great if you are watching and you are here and you want to ask some questions. I'm going to try and put the thing up so I can see if anyone's actually going to ask any questions. I have had some emails from you. I know some people can't make it tonight because of the time difference and other things, but yeah, we're going to talk tonight about the Bridging the Gap course. So first of all, thank you very much for those of you who have taken the course and for giving it a go. Basically, I wanted to do this course to sort of give you some tips and some help with something that I think is a really, really important thing for the voice, is to really understand why we get these problems in kind of trying to bridge the gap between the vocal registers. So, when you're moving from that chest voice to the middle voice to the head voice, it's really important to understand what's going on in your voice. And I think sometimes we don't even understand that chest, middle, head voice thing. It's something I learned quite late on when I was learning technique in singing, and it made a massive, massive difference to me. And that's why I wanted to basically share with you what I learned and things that might help you along the way. So again, why did I want to sort of do Bridging the Gap? Well, I think it's so annoying for a singer when you want to sing something and there's that thing of you flicking or you're breaking or you're cracking in your voice and you're like, well, I can't sing that song. But actually you can. It's just learning a way of doing it. And yeah, let's kind of get on. I know that you've all probably got a few questions you want to ask. Please ask away. I've got some questions that I have been emailed and I'd like to go through some of those. But yeah, it's great to have you here tonight. Let's kind of get on. I think one of the main questions that stood out to me that somebody has emailed me and asked, let me find it in here. I think, yes, it's this one. It was from Eileen, who said, well, what's normal? And I think that's a really good point of what is normal in where your voice breaks and where you need to change registers. And I think what's really important to understand is that it is quite personal to you as a vocalist, to you to understand where your voice needs to change and what the areas are that you need to focus on to be able to make it a lot easier for you, to be able to cross over the registers, to make it smooth, to make it just the tone you want as well. I think that's so important because it can be quite difficult sometimes to get the tone you want in a certain area of your vocal range. I know when I was younger and started out, I used to find it really difficult to get that depth and that power in the sort of belty range of my voice, in that sort of mid to higher range where I wanted to maybe, get a strong vocal, but my voice was either wanting to just kind of flick into head voice and it'd be all kind of weak and airy, or just not quite the sound I wanted. And I know that in this course, I haven't really touched on vocal qualities because that will be the next one. This was basically laying the foundations for you to understand what's going on with your voice and your voice, because, it is a very personal thing. It's different for everybody. Whether, you're a soprano, you're a mezzo, you're an alto, if you're a guy, you're a tenor. It is very personal to you. And I think it's important to not kind of worry that, well, that person, they've got kind of a similar range to me, but they can belt up to this note, or they can do that in their chest range, but I can, or, you know, things like that. I think it's focusing in on you as a singer and taking it from there. So anyway, I kind of digress from that. So what's normal? Well, I think, like I say, it's down to you. You've put in the question, Eileen, about when you siren, you're finding it easy to get through the breaks, but then when you come in to sort of do it differently, when you're going from, let me read this out so everybody knows what I'm talking about. So it says, what's normal? Doing the siren exercises, I reckon that my break comes between middle C and the E above that. I seem naturally to swap from chest to head, either at middle C, C sharp, D. Depending on the sound I'm making, I can use chest voice up to about the A above that, but it does sound forced. I want to check, I don't know if you're online now, but I want to check that you did mean sort of middle C as in C4, in that was the place that you were switching to head voice, because usually it's probably up an octave at kind of C5, but maybe you are talking about the switch into your middle range. So let's kind of look at that. When you are singing up your siren and you get to that point, what is happening? Is it breaking? Is it flicking? You know, it's working that out, really. If you can siren through there and you're getting higher than that, then you can probably take it a little bit higher. But if there's kind of, is the siren cutting out? That's the kind of bit you've got to focus on. That if it's cutting out at that point, then you may need to switch into a kind of a mix in that middle range, because that, what you're talking about there is probably your middle, the middle part of your voice, that mid mix range. And I think you've put down at the bottom that you think you should be using head voice, a twang voice, but this sounds very weak. And yeah, it probably sounds quite right that you need to be using a different type of voice quality to enable you to get the tone that you want. I think you're probably talking about the tone rather than other things. So yeah, focusing on that. And I think when we do go on to the next course, that will focus more on the way you are using your voice. So whether you're using that thinner fold mass or a thicker fold mass for belt, or if you're using twang, or if you're using something called sob cry, or you want to use a thin fold for a nice, you know, nice tone but a softer voice. There are so many different things I think we could kind of touch on with all this, and it is difficult as well when I've not heard your voice to also be able to help you out with that. So I will say, if anybody wants to send me an audio clip of them doing, you know, going up the siren or singing a scale or something like that, that you're having trouble with, because I think actually it was another question that I looked at before about the siren, they're finding it easy to siren up the range and getting through the break, but then when they're doing the scales, that they're finding it difficult to switch at that point, that it might not be exactly the same point of the break. And again, that could be down to a lot of things. It said about when I sing my siren, it's fine, but when I sit at the piano, now are you sitting down when you're doing the siren originally, or are you sitting? Because change of posture can completely change how you are singing. You know, it can affect your voice because you're not supporting it as you were when you were stood up. So maybe think about that. Let's have a look at that question actually, because it was quite a good one. About, oh yeah, the optimal point to switch from chest to head. I feel like I find a good spot when I siren, but when I have to sit at the piano and do a scale, it is much more difficult to switch during a scale. Why is that? So it could be that when you're doing the scales, it could be because you've changed the vowel sound. So you're not sirening, you've gone on to a vowel sound. And it can feel and be different to start with. So maybe change the vowel sound, just see if that alters things a little bit. Think about your posture, like I said. If you are sitting down, that could have changed the mechanism that's working. what else did I put? Oh yeah, if you are having trouble when you get to doing the scales, then go back again, siren through the scale, and siren through that part really, really softly, just to make sure you're getting into all the tiny little parts of your voice there. And then a good way is as you're sirening. So say, for example, you're going, you might want to then open it out onto the vowel that you're doing the scale on. So, so that you kind of going from that siren placement, because sometimes we get it right when we do the siren placement. But then when we open it out onto a vowel, everything changes. Everything can go a little bit astray and go a little bit wrong. So yeah, kind of try different things with that. What we got here? Any thoughts on best way to improve pitch? I guess that's kind of going off. It's not going off because it is an important part of bridging the gap, really, pitching and everything, because we can lose pitch when we change into a different register of our voice, because we are forcing it or pushing it in a part of your voice that you shouldn't, you should have transitioned. So the best way to do that is to make sure you are transitioning in the right place, make sure your placement's correct. Best thing to do to sort out pitching is a lot of pitch matching exercises, and I mean just basic stuff like playing a note, doing that, playing notes, singing through that, listening to a lot of songs, learning songs by ear is going to build up your oral awareness and your pitching and everything like that. So yeah, there's lots of things you can be doing for that. I mean, look, what have I got here from, this one. This one. If I were an extremely fast learner and began singing with all the correct postures, good breath support, and with good resonance from the get-go, how long does it take for my voice to mature? I love that, because we're always in a rush to sort of get to where we want to be. And it must be the same for instrumental players as well, that when you first start learning, or, you may have been singing for a long time, but you're trying to learn a new technique, it is, we're always in a rush to kind of get there, and we want to know, when am I going to be able to do that? When's my voice at its ultimate? And I think what you've got to remember is, again, it is a personal thing. It's your voice, and, I don't know how old you are. This is from Arata. I don't know if you're watching now. I didn't know whether you meant when's my voice mature age-wise, or just in terms of vocally, as in your technique. So yeah, it doesn't matter if you get singers who start and they can already breathe really well. So they've already got great breathing technique. They've got great pitch, they've got good posture, and yes, you can move quicker through technique with them. But the word mature, I guess I would put that down to experience as a vocalist, not just as a vocalist, but maybe as a person as well. I know that probably sounds a bit deep, but the maturity of somebody's voice, the sound of their voice, yeah, you can get young people that sound mature for their age when they're singing, but technique wise, yeah, it does take a few years. But your voice changes throughout your career anyway. My voice now to when I was younger is completely different. So, I probably started out singing more kind of musical theatre things and sort of stuff at school, church things, and went through that. And my voice has matured by listening to lots of different types of music, like jazz and soul and pop, and you mature that way by learning different genres and add that to your voice. And yeah, I can't say in 5 years your voice will be, you know, technically mature and you will sound like this. It's a complete personal thing, and it depends how much time you put into practicing as well. Oh, that was another question. Sorry if I'm straying off on things, but yeah, another question I got was how much do you need to practice, and how much does a professional singer practice? Well, I think, again, when you're younger, you have the time to put into practicing. You know, when I was younger, I'd practice all the time without really knowing, because you're just learning songs, you just sort of, you know, picking things up that you want to either sing for a show or you were doing for a performance or an exam or something like that. And you'd practice a lot. So, and when you're learning technique, you need to practice that. But I don't think, you know, yes, I could say, well, you need to practice an hour a day. And if you're new to everything and you're new to singing, yeah, that probably is a good idea to, you know, get that breathing working right, to get the technique, to get you in that way of thinking. As you go on, I mean, obviously, depends how much you perform, depends what you're doing. If you're in a show or something, then you probably practice before that show starts. But as soon as the run starts, you know, yes, there's probably times when you need to, you know, touch up on things, you know, tidy things up, work on a little bit of technique or go over something. Then yeah, you'll practice that way. But once you're out there performing, you're probably not practicing as much. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, you know, I wouldn't ever suggest, oh, you need to do 5 hours a day, because that's not going to be great for your voice. But it's kind of up to you. It's up to what you're doing at the time. You know, are you leading up to something? Then you might want to put in some extra time practicing. Are you, you know, doing an audition? Are you trying to get ready for an audition? Then yes, you would probably practice every day because you want that to be good. So yeah, it's kind of up to you. A few times a week is probably a good thing for someone wanting to build the technique, be a better singer. And yeah, but as a professional singer, it kind of comes in stages. You sort of work towards something, put in a lot of practice, do that, you know, and generally singing just becomes part of everyday life. So you don't really think of it that much. You sort of are just doing it. But anyway, yes, I digress. I can see some people are watching. If you do want to ask some questions, you know, don't be shy. Maybe you're watching from the YouTube live stream, so you might not be able to ask the questions. But if you are, you know, feel free to ask questions, because I will just blabber on about stuff, and I'll probably end up talking about other vocal things which are nothing to do with the course, but they're all relevant anyway. Let me have a look at this one. Oh, this is a good one about moving into head voice earlier when performing. But when practicing, I think this is a really important thing. When you practice, this is Eileen again. I can take your advice and move into head voice earlier, but at a gig, I find myself inevitably using forced chest voice for those same notes. Somehow it feels like the head voice version will be way too quiet and my voice will lose the power that is needed for those notes. So yeah, I think the first part of that question is, yeah, sometimes when you're practicing, everything sort of falls into place. And then when you go and perform, sometimes everything just goes out of the window and you go back to your old habits. And because that's safe, isn't it? It's safe and it's what you know. What I would say is, if you do feel like you are forcing something, if it feels wrong, then you definitely need to do something about it and change it, because you don't want to end up with, you know, vocal problems in the long term. So what I'd say about that is, yeah, I know what you mean. Sometimes switching into head voice is a scary thing and people think, oh, I don't want to do that because my voice sounds airy or weak, and they don't want to use that area, that sort of head voice range, because they think that they're not being as strong a singer as if you were just whacking it out. Now, I think for that, it's definitely moving on to this voice quality thing. And I'm so glad that a lot of these questions are sort of pushing you know, you're pushing towards needing to use voice qualities, because in this course I wanted to really strip it back and for you to just find your voice in the most bare form, without using any kind of, you know, tricks you've learned or any kind of things that are masking your true voice. I wanted you to just take it back and sort of, in a way, not start again, but just sort of get a level that you understand where your voice is moving. Okay, because that, to some people, that middle mix range is a completely new thing, you know, a new concept. We're often just taught chest voice and then head voice, and it's like, well, what goes on in between, you know, that kind of movement between chest to middle to the head voice? How do we make that mid-range sound better? And I think that is when you need to be looking at, like I've said before, twang. I mean, twang changed my voice forever, and I can't wait to do a course that shares that with you, because it did utterly change my voice forever. And twang belt, you know, it just opened up new doors and ways of singing for me, and it will for you as well. I mean, you probably use it already. I'd love to know what some of you do, because I'm not quite sure where you're at. I mean, I know people, you do perform professionally, some do it a training, so it'd be great to know exactly where you're at, you know, with everything, so I could help you a bit more specifically. But yeah, I've digressed again. What was that one? Yes, so when you're performing, yeah, like I said, sometimes things go out the window, so you've just got to, I think the more you practice, the more it becomes just part of what you do. So if you've been used to always force chesting, then you need to be careful of that. Obviously, if it's in a part of your range where it's all right to be doing that belt, maybe it's just that you need a bit more anchoring. So like I talked about in the course, anchoring again is such a major thing that really changes things, because as soon as you get your body involved with your voice, it just completely changes everything. You know, it creates a bigger sort of, you know, you're using muscles, and it's creating a larger kind of support system for your voice. And if you're trying to belt just from using your larynx and your diaphragmatic support, there's only so much power you can get without forcing it. So I think it's preparing your body for that as well. So especially that torso anchoring, really using that. If you're wanting a big sound in that belt range, in that middle mix range, then you have to use that torso anchoring to, you know, get the sound that you want. So yeah, so practice, practice, practice. It makes a massive difference. I think some people like to think that they could just try things a couple of times and are like, well, that doesn't work, so I'm not going to bother that. I just go back to what I did. But if that wasn't working for you, then you might as well try a little bit longer to try and get where you want to be with everything. So yes, let's have a look. What else did I want to say about the course? Oh yeah, constriction and retraction. That part, I hope you've kind of got your head around that one, because constriction and retraction, that whole that opens up so much as well, because sometimes trying to switch through the break, you know, one break, two breaks, the reason why, especially when you go from the siren into actually singing a song, the constriction, your voice naturally wants to constrict the higher you get. Okay, so if that's happening sometimes, because those false vocal folds just take over you know, your true vocal folds, and they just get in the way, and that's what causes that sort of breaking and cracking in your voice. So if you can really get that retraction, it'd be fantastic, you know, because that will really smooth that transition between chest, middle and head. I wanted to sort of go over, I know a lot of people ask this all the time about sort of ranges, vocal ranges, what notes should I be able to sing, what note exactly should I be switching at. And I did say at the beginning that it is a personal thing. There is a general sort of this is where it should happen thing. And I just want to go over these. So depending on what type of singer you are, which I often don't like to put people in boxes of that kind of soprano, mezzo, alto, all that kind of thing, because I think sometimes when you get put in that category, you start to believe that you can't sing other notes. And I'm not just talking about higher notes, I'm talking about lower notes as well. So, you know, a soprano, generalization of a soprano goes from an A3 up to that sort of F, G6. That is a, you know, top soprano. So people ask, where should I be transitioning? Well, as a general thing, that transition from chest around that E4 into your middle voice, yeah, you know, it can be different. It could be 2 or 3 notes different either way. It depends on you as a singer. And then going from that middle voice to your head around that sort of F5. Now that might sound quite high, but it depends because, you know, as a soprano, a lot of the time sopranos are permanent, they sound permanently in head voice. So it depends what kind of soprano voice you have. You know, some use their chest range a lot, but sometimes they don't. Mezzo soprano, going from that G3 up to an A5. I know some mezzos that can sing a top C, you know, that's C6. So again, you know, you've got that generalization of things. So you get that transition at E4 into your middle, and then you're shifting up to your head voice at that E5. Now, I wanted to talk about this. I do find that women especially, sorry men watching, but women especially, I've got the piano over here, but I do find this spot sort of from this kind of B flat, B, C, C sharp, D, you know, E flat, D sharp area is often the area here where everybody wants to sort of do that mix and that belt. And this is the area that does end up getting forced sometimes even above that, you know, up to this F and the G. And it is quite an impressive sound. And some people can do it, they can belt it, but they are mixed belting. You know, there has to be some switch in the mechanism of how your voice is working. But I would say that this is kind of that hotspot area that you need to really be thinking about switching into your head range, okay? So that up there is that head voice range. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, you know, you can email me and ask me things at any point. Because like I've said, it is quite difficult for me to sort of give you, you know, say, right, well, you should be switching at this note because I can't hear you, you know. So it'd be great if you do send me something and say, look, I'm struggling with this at this point in my voice, and I can have a listen, you know, even if it's a video clip. Yeah, it would be very helpful if you want real specific answers about where you should be switching. So yeah, sorry, I was on mezzo. I'm going to alto, or contralto, as some people like to call it. So you've got your starting range at sort of that E3 to your F or G5, transitioning around the G4 to your middle voice and your head voice at that D5. If you don't know what I'm talking about with these numbers, then C4 is middle C. Okay, so anything below that is, you know, you're going down in your numbers. Anything above that, so your C4, then your C5 is your C above middle C, and your C6 is your top C, basically. So yeah, I've touched on, they're the women's ones. Tenor, I guess your range is going from that C3 to the C6. Tenor, oh sorry, that's counter tenor, yeah. And then tenor, C3 to B4, and bass D2 to E4. I'm not sure I've got any bass singers. You can tell me if I have. But yeah, guys as well, if you want to send me your voice clips of where you want to change. I don't want to give you any generalizations of that, because I find male singers a little bit different, because yeah, they are. So anybody still got any questions? I think you're being shy. I can see that you're watching. I can see people watching, but I don't see any other questions. You probably just want to just sort of keep a low profile. But right, let's see. Have I missed anything out that I thought was a good question as well? Oh yeah, this is a good question. Singing with emotion, musicality. So I guess with this one, I was a little unsure with exactly what you meant by this. If singing with emotion can be reduced for the sake of simplicity, to getting away as far as possible from purely mechanical or note by note singing. I guess you're saying, this means that I need to sing with a good sense of musical direction, voice appearing all the time to be going somewhere. So I guess this again is sort of about that learning as a singer. And when you're practicing your technique and your warm-ups and your exercises. And so like in the course, I gave you those exercises each week. For those of you who haven't completed the course yet, you know, you'll be getting to those. But yeah, you practice your technique. But when you come to perform, if you've put the work in, if you've done the, you know, the background stuff, when you come to perform, it should just click in and you shouldn't have to think about it. Yeah, you shouldn't be thinking, oh, what note am I coming up to now? I need to switch into my middle voice, or I need to switch into my head voice. It should then come naturally. It just becomes, you know, it just happens. It's just what you do, you know. And I think what you're meaning by this is that plus, how do I sing with good musical direction? Well, I think understanding the song that you're singing about, so really understanding the lyrics and the story of the song and how you put that across. Dynamics, adding dynamics into the song to create colour and tone, you know, using different tonalities in your voice, using different onsets. Yeah, I did talk about onsets in the course. It was more about kind of looking at why you might be getting too much air. But, you know, once you understand vocal onsets, you can use them in different ways to sort of, you know, put emotive phrases into songs, you know, using different things like creak. I know that wasn't part of the course, but using that kind of creak sound to create something that, you know, you're putting emotion by using voice, you know, vocal little tricks, I guess, things like that. But I think, yeah, it has to come from you. You have to understand and try and get the message out to your audience as well, what you're singing about, because that is the most important thing. And yeah, musical direction, I guess, yeah, just trying to go on a journey throughout the song and just, yeah, getting that across to people. It's hard, isn't it? It's so funny, this as well. I'm just talking to myself. I'm trying to imagine you all there and see you all. Yeah, I'm just seeing my own face. So yeah, this is quite a different experience. Right, so there was another one I just wanted to talk about before we kind of wrap it up. I don't want to keep you here all night. There was something about improvising. Yes, so what's the best way to learn to identify? So I've had some questions that are off the course, you know, sort of thing. And what's the best way to learn to identify and sing in a specific key? Because I'm going to take a musical theatre improv course, and we have to make up the lyric and sing while the pianist improvises a song. Whew, it's really difficult for me to stay in key while doing this. Well, I think for a lot of people, it'd be quite difficult to stay in key while you're doing this. Because for a start, as a vocalist, to improvise, unless you've got an amazing ear and you've been doing that a lot for many years and improvising for many years, it is very difficult to follow someone just playing something, especially if you don't know what they're going to play before they play it. You know, it's always helpful to have a chord progression that you know is going to happen. So I'm not sure if they're actually going to give you any kind of clue of what's going on. But yeah, so the best way you could prepare for that is to practice improvising as much as possible to as many different things as you can. So I don't know if you play or you've got someone that you could get to just play, you know, improvise something, a song, and you could just come up with the lyrics, which it's to some people what you've just said would sound absolutely terrifying. I know when I start teaching people improvisation, sometimes it's just like, there's nothing, I don't know what to do, I don't know what I'm going to sing. So the fact that you're going to do it and you're giving it a go is an amazing, amazing thing anyway. But yeah, I think what you've got to do is you have to listen really, really carefully to what the person is playing. And, you know, hopefully they're not going to be really cruel and start sort of like modulating throughout it, because that would be really awful. But, you know, if they're in a key and, you know, you get the sense of that movement, of that chord progression, and you can kind of try and start following that through. But yeah, obviously it helps if it's in a key that you like to sing in. I know that that was a thing as well, of how do you find an optimum key to sing in? Well, again, if you've got any friends that play the piano or guitar, or, you know, you're in a band, they will help you. Don't be afraid to ask musicians. I think sometimes as singers, we just think that we're supposed to know everything, and oh, we can't say that because they'll think we're a bit silly or whatever. But it's important, I think, it's important to get songs that you sing in the right key for you, and to not be trying to force something. And yeah, just get together with some musicians and they will help you to work out where your voice sits the best. And you'll know, you know, if they're good, you can say, oh, can we try that, you know, a tone up or a third up, or that needs to be down, you know, a fourth, you know, the whole key. It depends, you know, again, on you and your range and what kind of things you sing. So I'm going to wrap this up in a minute. I want to again thank you all for, if you've taken the course and I've had some lovely feedback, thank you. And I'm really excited about the prospect of doing the next one, because I think this has been the foundations laid in this course for something quite exciting, which can transform people's voices so much. And yeah, it's going to be about vocal qualities, the next course. So about belting, about twanging, about thick fold, thin fold, how you use that. And it's things that I've learned. And I will say, yes, it does stem from Estill technique, because I do love Estill technique. I'm not saying, I'm not teaching you as an Estill teacher, because I'm not. I like to, you know, I believe in there are other techniques out there, but I learn a lot from Estill technique, and it does focus on a lot of vocal qualities. So we will be looking into that during the next course. Yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I've blabbered on for like 40 minutes, and I hope that it made sense to you. I can't remember really what said. But yeah, I'm sure we can all be watching it back later and thinking, what was that? No, I'm only joking. I've really enjoyed being here and sharing it with you. And it would be great at some point. I know someone has asked, do I do Skype lessons? At present, I don't. It is something that I am thinking about. It's more of a time thing with me, fitting everything in and doing all that. So thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you again soon at Singer's Advice. So have a good evening, and keep up the good work with the practice. And please do email me if I've forgotten to talk about something. Then please email me, and I will email you back with an answer. And I hope it's been useful, and thanks very much. I'll see you very, very soon. Good night.